Bonjour, bienvenue à la classe de français. Aujourd'hui, c'est jeudi. Ça veut dire que le week-end s'approche très vite. Weekend is coming fast. Today is already Thursday. Today, we're going to be learning how to conjugate some French verbs. These verbs are the majority of verbs in French. What we're learning is past what we learned with être, right? We learned how to conjugate the verb être, but now we want to learn how to use many more common verbs that we'll use every day. These are the majority of French verbs. Let's review for a moment, though, what we mean when we talk about conjugation. When you use a verb, the form of that verb must match the subject of that verb. This is called conjugation. The verbs that we're conjugating are all in the present tense. In other words, the action is happening now. Let's go backwards for a second. When you use a verb, the form of that verb must match the subject of the verb. This is called conjugation. I'd like you to copy that down in your notebook. Press pause. Copy down those two sentences. They're very, very important for us. Okay, the verbs that we are conjugating this semester are all in the present tense. In other words, the action is happening now. I'd like you to copy that down too, please. Press pause. Okay, let's look at how we conjugate verbs that end in ER. ER verbs are verbs that end in ER. We've learned a lot of those, right? Danser, chanter, jouer, they all end in ER. Now we're going to take that form and we're going to change it to put a subject in front of it. What does that mean? Let's think about it. First of all the verbs that end in ER, I didn't say this before, all of them are conjugated in exactly the same way with the same endings. So the nice thing is, once you know the endings for one ER verb, you know the endings for hundreds of French verbs. Tons and tons of French verbs have ER on the end. You could conjugate any of them even if you didn't know what it meant. I can do that. I can conjugate any verb you give me that's a regular verb, even if I don't know what it means, because I know if it ends in ER, it has standard ER endings. So it's very simple to conjugate an ER verb in the present tense. You simply remove the infinitive ending, then add the appropriate ending. I'd like you to hit pause again here and copy that down in your notebook also. These are very important notes. In your notebook, actually, I already had you do that. So we're going to talk about the endings. And I am going to tell you what they are. But first, I'd like you to also, more copying down, I'm sorry, but let's copy this down. The je, tu, il, and elle, and these endings. And you're going to say, what in the world is with these endings? What do I do with this e? I'm going to tell you. Let's just copy it down first. We have a lot to copy today. Please press pause, and I will go ahead and meet you on the other side. How do I do it? Let's see. Je, I. Tu, yes. Il, I. Elle, I. What does that mean? How do I do it? Should be an it there. How do I do it? I don't know. I'm confused. Let's put it together, and we're going to see how it works. If I explain it to you, it's not as interesting as if you actually see it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take an ER verb. Let's say we have parler, to speak, right? The first thing we do, in order to make this work with the subject, and we're going to talk about how that looks soon, is take off the ER. Right? Now we're left with parle. This is called the stem. It's the stem of the verb. Now, I want to add the appropriate ending as it makes sense. So let's say I want to say I am speaking or I speak. Instead of just to speak, I'm going to change it to speak. Right? I have to put an ending on it. I take the stem, take the ER off, I have a stem left, and I put on the E ending, which you wrote down. Je parle. Repeat it after me. Je parle. Je parle. Excellent. I do the same thing with tu, right? Tu. I have parler as my verb. I'm going to take off that ER. I now have parle, the stem, and I'm going to put on the ES, which is silent. Say it after me. Tu parles. Tu parles. Excellent. Let's try il. Think to yourself. See if you can do it yourself before I do it. I have my verb parler. What do I do with it? Take off the ER. I need to add an ending. What's the ending for il? E. Excellent. Say that one. Il parle. And the last one is elle. And the thing about il and elle is they are always the same. The only difference is the gender, but their verb endings are always the same. Elle, I have parlé. Take off the ER. Put on the E. Elle parle. Let's read all of those. Say them after me. Je parle. Tu parles. Il parle. Elle parle. I'd like you to write down that conjugation. We are only doing the singulars today. Je is one person. Tu is one person. Il is one person. Elle is one person. We're just doing the conjugations for singular subjects. We're talking about one person speaking or doing something. So take a moment and just copy that little conjugation down. Press pause if you need more time. Okay, let's try it with jouer. Let's see what happens. You do this out loud. We're going to do some written in a little bit, but you can do this out loud if you want to. Je joue, tu joues, il joue, elle joue. Actually, for this one, you have to be out loud because there's nothing to write. Say them after me. Je joue, tu joues, il joue, elle joue. Fantastic! Super cool. So we're going to practice it. It's a lot easier if you do it a few times yourself. For each verb, we're going to write in the correct ending. For example, it should say for example. Write each verb form with the correct verb ending. You can look at your notes if you need to. You can always look at your notes when you're doing either the video or the independent work. Always, unless I tell you not to, but I don't think there's a time when I would tell you not to. Always feel free to look at your notes. We have tu joues, right? And you are going to turn it into tu joues. So I'd like you to write these in your notebook. So just make a little space, find a little space to do this exercise. We have jouer, we'll do this one together, and you would write je joue. Excellent. Try the tu form. How do you say you play? We know that jouer is to play. Now how do you say you play? Write it down. You should have joue with an ES. Tu joues. Fantastic. Let's try il. How do I say he plays? Write that down so you're writing down your endings. We have our stem, joue, right? And our ending is I. Il joue. And for elle, she plays. What is our stem? Joue. Remember I took off the ER? What goes on the end? An I, joue. I want you to notice something. Je joue, tu joues, il joue, elle joue. They all sound the same. The singular pronouns where there's only one person, I, you, he, she, where there's only one person, they all sound the same with ER verbs, which is kind of nice. Even though you need to know about that S with tu, other than that, they sound the same, which is kind of fun. Okay, étudier. The first thing I want you to do is tell me or think about, what do you take off? The ER, exactly. Now, what ending am I going to put on j'étudie? I'd like you to write it down. Excellent, j'étudie. How about tu? What am I going to put on the ending? Write this one down. So you're basically writing down the conjugation. Yes, tu étudies. Tu étudies. Il étudie. What's the ending? Write it down, the whole thing, right? Il étudie with the right ending. Excellent. Il étudie. And the last one, elle étudie. What's the ending there? Write it down. Elle étudie. I went the wrong way. Excellent. Let's try aimer. What do I take off the end? Aimer. I take off the A, the ER. So now I have my stem. J'aime. Write that down and put the right ending on it. It's an E. How about tu aimes? Notice that the ending doesn't change the pronunciation. Tu aimes. Excellent. How about il aime? and E, and elle aime, and E. Fantastic! So now we're going to do a little bit of speaking practice. And obviously you're by yourselves. I can't grade you on your speaking practice, but it's to your advantage to do this. We're just going to read the verbs in their different forms to get used to how they sound when conjugated. A lot of learning a language is simply listening, because by listening, your brain gets programmed to expect certain sounds. And then when you say it, you're going to say the right word with the right ending because your brain is already programmed for that. If you think about babies learning how to speak, they learn to listen before they learn to speak, right? They listen for about a year, very carefully. And then after that, they start very slowly to speak. And how do they learn to speak? By listening to the people around them. So listening is just as important as anything else in learning a foreign language. So you're going to say the pronoun on the left with the verbs on the right, one at a time. So let me give you an example. We have je or J apostrophe, and then we have a list of verbs in the je form. And all you're going to do is say je chante, je danse, j'écoute, je joue, je mange, je nage, je parle, je regarde, je téléphone. Okay, you go ahead and do that one. I'd like you to pause the recorder, you can pause the video, and go through and say those. Then we'll go to the next one. Okay, the next one, chante, the tu forms. Go ahead, tu chantes, tu danses. Pause it and go ahead and say those. Excellent. Okay, let's go on to il. Il chante, il danse, il écoute. Pause it, say them, and then we'll move on. You can see this is intended for a partner, but we don't have any partners right now. And the last one, elle. Elle chante, elle danse, elle écoute. That was a great job. Now we're going to move on to our independent work. Have a fantastic day, a fantastic morning. Bon travail, bon après-midi, bonne journée, all those things. Have a wonderful day.